Montreal, the everyday, and the extraordinary. The Elias Macko Show on CJAD 800.
Overcast, little light rain falling through the region. That's going to be our day here in Montreal. But we are at 21 degrees now, 27, a little touchy humidity out there. It'll be a bit warmer by the time we get to this afternoon. On the show now, we are going to talk about artificial intelligence and how universities have been addressing this problem, because a woman who well knows universities is suggesting that instead of prohibiting and policing the use of AI by students, what universities should do is stop treating it as a cheating problem and start teaching it as a tool. Here to tell us more about her opinion piece recently in the Globe and Mail is Anna Jahn, Executive Director of the Center for Media, Technology and Democracy at McGill University's Max Bell School of Public Policy. Professor, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You teach at McGill University. Have you seen your students increasingly relying on AI? Have you been forced to address this in your own classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every professor I know and every student, frankly, I know has been using and is more and more using AI every day for most tasks and for most writing, frankly, or assignments that are happening at university. So it's very widespread, and the numbers show that. So the latest survey in Canada showed that about at least 70% of students at least admit to using it almost daily. And the numbers are even higher in the US and in the UK.
We've heard from a number of universities, and you mentioned this in the opinion piece you wrote for the Globe and Mail, have decided that using AI is a form of cheating. They're working on ways to detect AI use, or they're talking about designing courses that are AI proof, having in-person exams written only longhand with paper and pen and that type of thing. Why do you feel that's the wrong approach to the rise of AI use by students?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's, I totally understand why universities, first of all, try to grapple it with this way. It is completely challenging. So AI is completely challenging the ways universities have in the past evaluated and assessed students' performances. So, I think this was the initial reaction. Oh my God, what do we do? We can't really give take-home exams anymore because we know that students will use AI. And I think in the beginning, there were still attempts to try to detect it, and there was software to see how likely, for example, it was to use AI, et cetera. And I think, it's clear, I understand why universities, first of all, are concerned with the cheating problem. But I think now, more than, almost now 4 or 5 years in, since the arrival of ChatGPT, we really need to tackle this problem a lot more broadly. And we can't just keep wondering about the assessment and the evaluation and testing and cheating, but we really need to think about how do we completely transform our institutions. Because I think AI challenges all the assumptions we've made on how students learn and what they should be learning, but also I think ultimately how they can use these tools very effectively.
There is still the concern that a student using AI is not doing the thinking necessary to really truly learn, to internalize what they may have read, to work through it, to puzzle through it, to ask the, questions about the material and find the answers. That when an AI is doing this, can you really say a student has learned anything in a course? That concern isn't going away, or maybe you disagree.
No, I completely agree. It is a huge concern. But this is exactly why I think universities needs to respond very differently to this. I think all the studies, and there's a really interesting study by at MIT that exactly show that what people call the cognitive debt or the cognitive offloading that students themselves are very worried about is indeed happening. And so students do not learn the same and are not developing the critical thinking skills and the judgment that they need later on when they use AI. So this is why I would argue we need to completely redesign how we teach and say we need to think very hard about what are the really unique and important skills for any program that we need to force, I guess, or try ways for students to develop without AI. And then at the same time, though, there need to be a space where they also learn how to use these tools very effectively.
So set us on that path. Set us on. Can you give us for instance, where a course or a course of study, a field can be redesigned to do exactly that? Teach what you really need to quote unquote learn, but allow this window for AI use and teach the students how to use AI for a certain part of their work.
I mean, I will try, but I think we're very early on. And I think ultimately the answer is it's going to look very different from program to program, department to department. But my hunch is at this stage that there needs to be very dedicated in person, without any, frankly, laptops and technology spaces, probably with fewer students, where we basically sit down with also a very different ratio between teacher and student, and to develop these skills. So that could be, through discussion, of course, that could be through handwriting exercises, etc. This means also that, of course, the big model of massive lectures where most students sit on their laptops and also not really following and then watch maybe a video and then write something with AI, this is no longer working. So I think what we're looking at, and again, I don't have the answer exactly what this is going to look like, but I think we need to really have dedicated spaces where there is no technology so that some of these skills can be developed. And again, though, at the same time, I think there is a responsibility of universities to teach students how to use the tools and be at the cutting edge in a way of these tools, so that they can also go into a labor market where they will be expected to know these tools and to master them.
You mentioned it in your piece in the Globe that cost is going to be an issue because those big, just about every intro to fill in the blank course is an auditorium course these days where it's, 100 or more students, sometimes hundreds of students, sitting in this gigantic auditorium, or they're online and they're listening to a professor talk. And sometimes the lectures are pre-recorded and that type of stuff. It's expensive to do otherwise. So can universities afford the path that you're endorsing?
Well, not right now, and not with the current funding arrangements and not how they're set up currently. So I think this is why, though, I think there's really an opportunity and a real call for transformative change of these institutions, and really tough conversations in every government to think about how do we fund our educational institutions differently. So I think the cost for a different model that is much more in a way, personnel intensive is going to be an important one. And I'm not suggesting that, there needs to be real trade-offs made here. But I think but I think that's the opportunity, because at the end of the day, the risk is going to be that really our universities are becoming, I don't want to say obsolete, because I still think, a lot of people will rely on certain certification and obviously, a degree. But I think more and more, and I see this happening already with students and my own children, they're asking what is actually the value they're getting from universities if they don't feel they actually are being challenged and they're learning. And so I think in order to survive for universities, they will have to do things very differently. I say this all of this knowing that universities and educational institutions change very, very slowly, and so this will not be an overnight change. This will take time, but I think the sooner we get started and the sooner we start to experiment, what could this different model look like? How does the classroom look like where we don't have any technology? What would be actually the cost? We're going to be more and more in a world where we're going to have a two-tier system where some of the really private institutions that, by the way, are doing this already now, are going to be really far ahead and are going to kind of embrace this different model, and large public institutions potentially will be really left behind.
Are you getting any traction among your colleagues at McGill? Have you won over any supporters?
So I got a lot of really good positive emails. I'm not worried about support from my colleagues, professors, because I've talked to many of them. I'm very good friends of mine. This is a conversation I have almost daily with my colleagues. I think they all see the problem. They're all frustrated. They all feel like they've been a bit left alone to figure this out in their own classroom. What I would love to see is really more institutional and leadership change. And yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to have a conversation, of course, with our president, but I'd be happy to also have conversations across the country with university leadership on this topic.
Well, I'm wishing you good luck with that, Professor, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Professor Anna Jahn, Executive Director of the Center for Media, Technology and Democracy at McGill University's Max Bell School of Public Policy.
Hey, I'm Ruby Carr, the host of the podcast Encore. Check out our brand new episodes featuring music from the show that everyone is reheating as we speak, Heated Rivalry. Join me as I go behind the songs that brought Shane and Elia together. I'll tell you the stories of Feist, My Moon, My Man, Wolf Parade's I'll Believe in Anything, and Tattoo's All the Things She Said, and how they all became a part of this global phenomenon. Stream Encore on iHeartRadio, Crave, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Stories impacting Montrealers. News impacting Montreal. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
It's been a number of years now that the province has grappled with the difficulty in getting Quebecers signed up with a family doctor. And there was a big push to make sure that at least 500,000 people were newly signed on with a family medicine practice or doctor. That was attained, and in 7 months. So the province was pretty pleased about that, but some reporting in the Montreal Gazette is pointing out that just because you've been taken off the waiting list for a family doctor doesn't mean you've actually been assigned an individual family doctor, a GP. You've been, in some cases, attached to group practices or primary care teams where patients are seen by whichever physician or health professional is available rather than by one dedicated doctor. And there are those who are saying this is not ideal as a way to practice medicine because people with chronic conditions aren't seen by the same person all the time who is familiar with them and tracking their health. Here to tell us more about this issue is Régis Blais, professor in the School of Public Health at the Université de Montréal. Régis Blais, welcome to CJAD.
Yes, good morning.
Were you impressed that the province, had those 500,000 new sign-ups in the span of 7 months?
Well, it was a promise by the Minister of Health. It looks good, but for the patient, it doesn't make a big difference. I mean, those who are registered with a family physician group, they're not guaranteed to see the same doctor or in the same clinic. So it looks good, but in the end, it doesn't make much a difference for access to care for patients.
What are the drawbacks of that system? I mentioned people with chronic conditions. But I think most people would prefer to see the same doctor all the time. Is that at all? I think we understand why that's would be the gold standard. Is it feasible?
Well, is it feasible? The thing is that apparently we don't have enough physicians to take on the responsibility of each person in Quebec. So at least we should make sure that the chronic patients have their own physician who can see them and know their history and can provide good care, good advice. So at least what we call the vulnerable or chronic patients have their individual physician. For the others, well, if you have a acute problem, let's say ear infection, or you have pain in your leg or whatever, and you just need specific care, maybe it's okay to see a different physician for each of your ailment. But for a chronic patient who has, and quite often, many conditions, it should be the goal to have your own individual physician.
I think a lot of people are despairing that our system will ever function properly in the best interests of patients. Are you still hanging on to hope that improvements can be made that are on the way?
Yes, we have to keep hope. It is possible if we use the professionals, the health professionals, including the physicians, the proper way. So, like when a physician diagnoses a problem to a patient, let's say a chronic condition, well, the patient does not have to see the doctor every time for his or her condition. We do use nurses to make the follow-up, but we should use them more. So, like, physicians should make a diagnosis, design a treatment plan, and then nurses and more nurses should follow up the patients, so physicians are freed or have free time to take on new patients and make new diagnoses and treatment plans. So instead of seeing the same patients when their condition are controlled, well, nurses should follow up the patients who have been seen by the doctor and a treatment plan has been designed. So, it's possible to use the resources, the human resources or professional resources more effectively, but there are issues of controlling the market from the physician part, and giving access to patients by nurses.
We've also heard talk about, and we have seen over the past number of years, more powers being given to pharmacists in a bid to relieve some of the pressure on doctors that pharmacists can sometimes help with certain conditions and provide certain medications for certain cases. However, in those cases and with nurses, the problem has always been that doctors are not so happy about sharing their power. That doctors have not really been all that keen to open up to nurse practitioners to provide more prescribing ability to pharmacists. So are doctors a little bit of a problem here, a gatekeeper, so to speak?
Well, doctors are really concerned about the quality of care or quality of interventions that those other professionals can do, and that's relevant, that's appropriate. But at the same time, when those professionals are trained, university trained, and they're part of an order, and the definitions of their own interventions or services is clear, doctors should be confident that it is possible for a patient to be seen or treated or followed up by another professional. So physicians are a bit reluctant to let go of their patients, but and especially if there's money involved. So, but there should be more, I would say, agreement or discussion about who should do that or who can do what. And physicians, in the meantime, well, they're there are plenty of patients that they can see, so they shouldn't be scared of losing revenues because other professionals are taking their patients. There are plenty of patients waiting to be seen by physicians.
Yeah, too many, in my view. Professor, thank you for your time. I appreciate the interview.
Thank you.
Régis Blais is a professor in the School of Public Health at the Université de Montréal. After the 10:30 news update, we will talk about the possibility that Jagmeet Singh is going to return to the public eye as potentially the head of Canada's top tourism agency. That and more. Stay tuned.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back
2010s, the decade.
to the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd.
And more. All your decade-defining favorites all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away. The Elias Macko Show. On demand.
On demand. Don't miss a thing.
Find your favorite clips at CJAD800.com and on the free iHeartRadio app.
Former NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has not been seen very much since he resigned as leader of his party after that disastrous electoral showing, but he may be returning to public life to help head up Canada's top tourism agency. We'll speak to the journalist who broke this story yesterday. That's coming up.
When the news breaks, be the first to know with CJAD 800.
About 10,000 federal public servants have applied for the government's early retirement program, launched as part of a plan to cut the number of bureaucrats.
Get it first with breaking news emails sent to your inbox. Sign up today at CJAD800.com.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll. One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all.
Bryan Adams Radio.
I'm coming back to you.
Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.
Everybody, how are you tonight? Sounds great.
La STN vous souhaite la bienvenue à bord.
You can carpool with him. Elias Mackos is in transit on CJAD 800.
Trudy continuing to sit in for Elias. One of our texters flagging power failures East End, and the Hydro-Quebec website is showing 14 small failures, various parts of the city, about 1,500 addresses affected, and the power restored estimates range from right about now to 11:30 to 2:30 this afternoon. So if you're without power, I think just a waiting game as it usually is. Right now, we are talking about the possibility that former NDP leader Jagmeet Singh may be returning to public life as the head of the top tourism agency in Canada. And here to tell us more about this story is the journalist who broke it for CTV News, Graham Richardson. Now, you know him also as the host of the Graham Richardson Show every Friday at noon on CJAD 800. Good morning, Graham.
Hey, Trudy, how are you?
I'm very well. This is an interesting turn of events. What are your sources telling you?
Well, it took us by a bit of a surprise. I mean, Destination Canada is the main marketing vehicle and organization for Canada, for tourism in Canada, $1 billion industry, right? And so we started to get some calls yesterday from people in the industry who were surprised by this, who were not exactly thrilled by it, to say the least. And all we know is that Jagmeet Singh, the former NDP leader, is being considered. This is the CEO position of a crown corporation. The government can do this and does do this in many organizations, make appointments like this. Obviously, with Jagmeet Singh's history with the Liberal Party, it raised a bit of a few eyebrows in terms of the way it looked.
Yeah, this, of course, because the NDP for months and months and months was propping up the Trudeau government by voting with it to avoid a defeat of the government on certain questions. I'm just wondering whether he has any expertise in tourism in his background. We know he's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Does he? Was he ever a travel agent?
I don't think so. But look, I mean, in fairness, like, he understands the public-facing piece of politics, right? He's a high-profile person. So I'm sure you could make the argument that this high-profile person would be able to get out and promote Canada and all those sorts of things. That all being said, I mean, they've got an interim CEO. They apparently did an executive search. And this kind of changed a few months ago when Jagmeet Singh's name came up. So we reached out to Mr. Singh last night. He didn't respond. I do know from several people that it's more than just naming him and saying, hey, what do you think about this? We couldn't get a clear idea on exactly how far down the track this is. Is it signed off? Is it imminent? Or is this just something they're going to pull if public reaction is not good? We don't know that. I just know that he is certainly being considered to the point where people were preparing for the announcement and preparing for him to become the new CEO of Destination Canada.
And preparing to react not in a positive way, I am guessing.
Certainly we talked to people yesterday who said, look, this is $1 billion industry. We are in a trade war. The world is complicated. And someone was quite blunt with me yesterday from the industry saying, if this is how seriously the Carney government takes tourism, I'm concerned for the organization and I'm concerned for the industry. You know, like, it doesn't take a genius or a political person to realize that this looks like patronage, even if it's not, that this is a person who kept the party in power for a long time with the agreement, and this looks like a quid pro quo, even if it is not. The tourism people are saying, look, this is not a Senate appointment. This is not an ambassador appointment, you know, to a nice, a nice part of the world or something like that. This is a very, very serious position because, look what Canadian tourism and the boycott has done to the American system. Like, when Canadians stopped going en masse, it cost billions of dollars to the American tourism market. So there are very, very serious things going on here, and that person is of the opinion that Jagmeet Singh isn't qualified to do this because he hasn't worked in tourism before. And if you take a look around the world at people running national tourism organizations, marketing arms for governments or for countries, all of them have decades of experience in tourism. All of the CEOs, whether it's Germany, UK, US. And so have political people done this before? Yes. In Canada, a lot of the tourism people suggesting that is not the way to go.
And I guess then saying it's more important, this knowledge of the industry, than the people skills that Jagmeet Singh may bring to the job as the public face of the industry. Because, you know, I mentioned earlier on the air, having met the guy for interviews and stuff, he's very at ease speaking to people. He's very at ease when you meet him. He's comfortable in the spotlight. He has all those people skills and communication skills. It's the tourism knowledge that I guess they feel is more important that he lacks.
Yeah, and well, you know what? Maybe the government ignores this criticism, and maybe this appointment is done, and it'll be announced shortly or in a few weeks. We're not sure. Speaking to one person privately yesterday, they said, look, if it's announced, we'll deal with it. It's hardly a way to welcome a CEO. But obviously there is going to be, particularly from the Conservatives, significant backlash that this is a payoff for essentially years of propping up Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. They will argue, I'm assuming if this goes through, they will argue, look, just like what you were saying, Trudy, in fairness, look, this guy has a lot of skills. He's a high-profile person. He knows the country. He can certainly sell the country internationally. But it may be a bit of a bumpy start for some people in the industry because they look at this as like you're basically appointing an ex-politician who lost the election and whose party is in the doldrums as some kind of a thank you or a reward for striking that deal with Justin Trudeau. Even if that's not the case, that's certainly what it looks like.
And once again, Graham, the timeline for when we should know whether this is just a trial balloon or whether this is an actual plan?
It's more than trial balloon, Trudy, but I'm very cautious because I asked about this yesterday. Like, okay, so how close is this? How imminent is this? Well, we're waiting for the call. We're not sure, but it certainly is not. I'll put it to you this way: when I heard about it from several people yesterday, it was not a situation where it was just kind of floating. Hey, what would you think of this? That thing had the suggestion that he would be the new president was quite a ways down the track. So these things can be last minute change. So we'll see. Mr. Singh, as I said, did not return calls last night, and we'll see when and if the appointment comes through.
Graham, congrats on the scoop, and thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Trudy. Thanks for having me.
All right, Graham Richardson, host of the Graham Richardson Show on CJAD 800 every Friday at noon.
Hey, I'm Ruby Carr, the host of the podcast Encore. Check out our brand new episodes featuring music from the show that everyone is reheating as we speak, Heated Rivalry. Join me as I go behind the songs that brought Shane and Elia together. I'll tell you the stories of Feist, My Moon, My Man, Wolf Parade's I'll Believe in Anything, and Tattoos, All the Things She Said, and how they all became a part of this global phenomenon. Stream Encore on iHeartRadio, Crave, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Debate, interviews, and breaking news. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
10:48, and is that the sun peeking? Oh well, I got excited for nothing. I think I thought I saw a beautiful ray of sunshine here at the corner of René Lévesque and Papineau. The forecast is telling us mainly cloudy today, 40% chance of showers with a risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon, a high of 25 and a humidex of 32, and right now we're at 21 degrees. It is a little sticky out there. I think that is the sun trying to burn through the clouds, even just briefly. We are no strangers here in Montreal to pedestrianized streets, and we've seen them either seasonally or occasionally in a lot of places through the village area here, not far from our studio, of course, long-standing summer pedestrian area. Other places sometimes pedestrianized for the summer or for certain weekend events, sidewalk sales, and more. In Villeray this year, Villeray Street has been pedestrianized for the first time, and it's getting some mixed reaction from local merchants. Some of them are quite encouraged by the neighborhood's response to this. Others are saying, well, we're looking for a real boost in business, and that hasn't materialized at this point. Here to tell us more about what has been going on is Louis Vaillancourt, General Manager of the CDC Quartier Villeray. That's the business group in that district. Louis, thanks for joining us on CJAD.
My pleasure. I don't mean to pick, but it is the SDC. So it's a BID. It's a business improvement district.
Gotcha. Business improvement district. I stand corrected on the terminology there.
It is fine.
How big a stretch of Villeray Street has been pedestrianized this summer?
Actually, the old pedestrian area used to be between Saint-Denis and the Gaspé on the Castelnau. But now, because of the major work that's occurring, we surveyed our members on Villeray Street because I believe this is the best commercial mix for a pedestrian area. And from Berry to the Gaspé, they wanted to have the experience of a pedestrian area. And so far, it is very good. So it is a little longer than the one we had on the Castelnau. However, the portion on the east side of Saint-Denis is not as popular with pedestrians as the other side is. So,
and
so
why would that be? Why is the eastern portion not as popular, do you think?
Well, there are many reasons. First, it's blocked as Berry. So, as you know, when you come from the east going on Villeray, because it's a one-way street, there are concrete blocks. So, some people don't really read the new signage, so they're frustrated because when they turn on Villeray, they realize that they need to turn on Berry going back south. Some huge trucks drive on that street, which is illegal. Some of them jackknife, so it creates a lot of complication for the commerces, for deliveries and stuff like that. And for, I'd say, 9 on 10 that are on that side, they didn't see any difference. There's only one that really suffered, and it's not that a kind of a walk-in type of commerce. It's more of a drive-by. So you can imagine when you have delivery people stopping in front of your pizzeria, buying a couple slices and leaving right away, construction workers. Now the cars cannot access that pizza spot. So for them, it's not a good experience. So for the others, like, more people are coming in, but, you know, we're high end, so people won't, you know, just come in and have like an emotional, reaction to buy something because it's a little more expensive. Will they come back to buy later? That we still don't know, but there are more people going in, but it doesn't affect really the revenues. They don't really see a big difference in revenues.
Oh, that's interesting that there would be a dip because impulse purchases generally are very cost sensitive or price sensitive. If something is inexpensive, I think you're more likely to grab it on impulse as opposed to something that's a little bit more high end where you'd have to think, well, maybe next payday I might be able to afford
exactly.
that.
Exactly. That's why when we do an event, I always ask the members, do you see new faces? You know, because during the event it went like, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of people that came in, but we didn't sell more. Okay, but in the coming weeks after that, do you see new faces? Do you ask, how come you came to see us? Sometimes people say, well, you had an event 2 weeks ago. We really like your shop. That's why we're coming back. So the real effect of an event like a pedestrian area takes a couple weeks or months to reveal its real success or not. Now, but for the time being, on the east side of Saint-Denis, it's not a success story.
What else have you done besides, you know, keeping the traffic off and creating turning the street over to pedestrians? Have you prettied up the area a little bit? What have you added?
Yeah, we prettied up the streets for sure. We have an art gallery on the street. We also have a lot of seating. We have ping pong tables, a pétanque, a game. We have a foosball, and a lot of flowers. We have roofs to protect people from the rain. A couple pergolas, so people can spend a whole day on Villeray. And obviously, we had the Saint Jean-Baptiste on Villeray Street. That 12,000 people came over. When you realize because you know it's Montreal, so it really is a residential street with businesses on the ground floor, but it's actually a small street, only 11 meters large. And this was full of people from Henri Julien to Saint-Denis. Even on the other side of Saint-Denis, it was full. A lot of commerces, even, you know, they didn't have enough food to feed everybody. So this was a huge success, and the people actually, I went after to see the commerces and ask them how their experience is, and they're talking about next year. No, next year we're going to do better next year. So they're already ready for, they want another pedestrian street next year. Which will be the borough's decision, obviously. We don't work. We're not the borough. We're a service provider. for the borough. So the decision will be the one taken by the city of Montreal.
Well, let's talk about that, because I was reading in Le Devoir's coverage of the pedestrianization of Villeray Street that it is a possibility that it would be needed in the district because the construction on the other street that used to be pedestrianized is expected to continue next year, is it not?
Yes, actually. You see, on the Castelnau, I'd say that in 2026, our members were impacted for the first time. So from Berry to Drolet, all these businesses are right now in the construction area with fences. All the commerces they're all accessible. We did a lot of advertisement to tell people to come. We're talking about the rebirth. So we don't want customers to think, well, it's a hole with sidewalks. So we're talking about the rebirth, how beautiful it's going to be after the work is done. But the other section of the SDC, so the final part, is going to be done in 2027. So yes, next year the work is going to be from Drolet to the Gaspé, which is the last part of our territory, and it will be impacted. So it's going to be the church front and, I'd say probably another 15 businesses that will be directly impacted. I hope that the part that is done this year will really become completed with cobblestone and with new furniture and new greeneries, and that next year it's going to be accessible to everybody. But I don't think it's going to be possible to make it pedestrian because of the noise, because of obviously the traffic will be severely impacted again. They still need to block streets. The northeast, the north-south streets have to be reorganized. So for sure, next year it won't be possible to do a pedestrian event on the Castelnau. But the businesses will be open, and it's going to be beautiful, and people are going to be able to go. And we use the nighttime to compensate for the losses during the day. And so we're creating events.
If you do end up going back to Villeray Street for another pedestrianization next summer, any lessons learned this year that you would apply to next year?
Oh, for sure. Well, first, on the other side of Saint-Denis, we know that it's not useful to them, so we wouldn't go on the other side of Saint-Denis, on the east side. We would still keep it from Saint-Denis to the Gaspé as it is now. Aluminum ping pong tables, you need a sound barrier to cut this through because there's a lot of reverberation.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's weatherproof. It's good for 100 years. It's Quebec aluminum made here in Montreal, but we need a sound barrier to cut a reverberation. We'll need to put also all the games like the foosball further away from residential areas, so because people are working from their home now, and so we'll need to rework the floor plan. But besides that, everybody seems to be very happy. We don't have a lot of complaints from the citizens. The only complaints we have are night and noise at night. So we've put a lot of signs to remember people that there's a regulation in Villeray that the noise is not allowed after 11 at night, and we've asked the police to have little patrols after 11 at night to tell people, try to go party at your own place. So besides that, the businesses are very, very happy with the experiment.
Well, we look forward to seeing what the borough will decide for next year. And everything is a learning experience, right? You got to try it once to fully understand how the vision is executed. Louis Vaillancourt, thank you very much for your time.
It is my pleasure.
Louis Vaillancourt, General Manager of the SDC Quartier Villeray. That's the business development operation in the Villeray district. Coming up after the 11 o'clock news, we'll get some reaction from the CAQ to that economic vision that the Liberals presented this week.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Bryan Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.